So welcome to Houston rush hour traffic. I'm trying to get about 10 miles down the road, and at this rate, there's a good chance it can take me an hour to get there. The problem is there's a lot of traffic around us, and it's pushing on us from every side. It's on the right, it's on the left. It's a pretty good picture of what our world is like when it comes to media, when it comes to social media, when it comes to all the influences that are around us. Everybody's connected. Everybody's crowded. There are so many voices competing for our attention and competing for us to listen to me. I'm the most important thing. I'm the thing that's speaking the truth. It's kind of the dynamic of living in our world and living in the culture that we're a part of. It's a real challenge when it comes to trying to be the person that God has called you to be and live a life of purity when you realize that sometimes you're surrounded by so many things that are trying to influence you. I'm just trying to get from point A to point B a short distance, but there are so many things that I have to deal with to get there. Even just considering the numbers, the staggering numbers on social media. Consider how many hundreds of millions of photos and posts are made every day across the various platforms. There are so many opportunities to communicate in one direction and say, here's me, this is me, this is what I'm doing, this is what I'm thinking. Add to that all of the people around you doing the same thing. Life just gets pretty crowded sometimes. When you're traveling down a road like this, sometimes you get to a time of day when it's so crowded and it's so congested that the easiest thing to do is just to pull off, take an exit, and let some of it get beyond you. Find a place where you can find a quiet space and give it some time to clear out. The same way when it comes to your relationship with God, when it comes to your relationship with other people, sometimes you have to find a space in your life to get away from all of the chaos, get away from all of the noise, turn the phone off, turn the computer off, put away the iPad, and get yourself to a place where you can say, you know what, I'm going to quiet some of this noise, and I'm going to get myself into a position and into a condition where I can hear from God. When you consider some of the more disturbing trends in our electronic culture, things like sexting or posting inappropriate pictures of ourselves on social media or across different platforms, you have to consider the long-term repercussions of things like that. There are things that are posted in a moment when you're not being serious, you're not thinking about long-term issues or long-term effects. Those things are out there forever. People screenshot them, people have access to them, and they can be used against you. We've got to be so careful that our behavior in the digital world, in the electronic world, is still lived under biblical principles and is still governed by biblical guidelines. We've got to be so very careful that the lives that we're living and striving to live in our day-to-day world doesn't go out the window when we power up an electronic device. You've got to be aware of the fact that the same truth that helps me walk and talk with people in the real world has to extend into the electronic world. There are things that people say and things that people do behind a keyboard or behind the safety of a screen that they would never say in the real world, and they'd never do in the real world. But you just get caught up in the crush of culture. You get caught up in traffic, if you will. And it's blazing this way and blazing that way, and it's so easy to just go a step too far. What you really need to do is take some time, realign yourself with your purpose, realign yourself with where you're supposed to be headed, and realize that sometimes you just have to stop, get away from the traffic, get away from the noise, and say, God, I want to live my life according to the same principles behind this screen that I do when I walk into the doors of my church, and when I pick up my Bible and know what it says and know what it teaches. I'm going to live that same life in the digital world of our culture. The Bible tells us in Job 28:7, there's a path that no fowl knoweth, that the vulture's eye has not seen. Can I just tell you that there is a path that you can walk with your life? There is a path that you can find with your commitment that takes you to a place of security and a place of being able to hear God's still small voice in spite of the roar of the culture around you, in spite of the press of so many influences around you. There's a place you can find, there's a path you can walk that you can commune with God and you can follow His leading, you can follow His guidance, and you can be who you're truly called to be in spite of what everything around you speaks to you and says that you should be doing, you should believe, and all of these different things that culture declares to us. In spite of all of that, the voice of God declares, I have a plan for you, I have a purpose for you, and if you'll walk my path, then you'll find your wholeness